All right. Welcome back, everyone, to Behind the Panels. We are going through episode 62 of Simon Sue's, my webcomic on Webtoons. And today we're going to do something a little bit different. Normally, we just sort of run through the episode from beginning to end, but I think it would be cool to just sort of pick a particular aspect of either the art or the narrative, and then just kind of pick out key parts of the comic that we kind of want to dig a little bit deeper into. So we're going to do that today. And then with me are, again, the usual suspects, and I will let them go ahead and introduce themselves as usual.
Hello, my name is Corey. I am the 3D artist and also one of the color fillers. Hopefully, with practice, I'll get promoted in Simon Seuss. Shannon.
All right, this is Shannon. I occasionally will give feedback on larger story points and plot points and also thumbnail feedback. And when I'm not doing this, I am a photographer, and that's me.
Yay. And you've got an audio upgrade.
And I've got an old, new to me audio upgrade. I basically found an old headset. I'm embarrassed.
Excellent. Okay, well, now it's time for a bit that I call Previously On. And here I will just sort of recap the last episode so we're all on the same page and we can go right into the current episode. Episode 61 was basically Simon and Shannon on their way to the courthouse in order to initially warn who they think is going to be the next target of this vengeful demon that has been like sicked on all of these participants of a trial or potential targets of vengeance for one of the victims of this murder trial. And we find that there's a district attorney or assistant district attorney who is somewhat suspicious, could be on their side, could also be on the kind of occult demon side. We don't know yet what his deal is,
but we know he's hot.
We know that he is a fabulous haired man in a snazzy suit who likes to slam young law students against walls. But where we left off was a little bit of a cliffhanger because we have Montague, who is one of our main antagonists, about to give this really big press conference. And again, Simon and he have some bad blood from the first season, and Simon wants some revenge. So he's about to confront him. And that is where we are in episode 62 of Simon Sue's Occult Lawyer.
Dun, dun.
Go.
Okay, so with this scene, I wanted to talk about just the framing of everything. Like, you have the rack focus in the back where it's not really important, but you definitely see that we're in front of the courthouse. But just this area is very tight in here. And then as you scroll down and you see the reporters, it's still tight. And you're kind of on the edge of your seat figuring out, all right, well, what's going on? And he's like, spewing his lies here.
Well, stop right here because it's not just necessarily like the choice of shot, because you have the medium shot, the medium close up, but it's also where you place the character within the scene to build that uneasiness. And I'm sure some of you are familiar with the term like rule of thirds.
Yeah, and he's looking the quote unquote wrong way here.
Yeah, so Shannon, why don't you tell us all about the rule of thirds?
So rule of thirds is a classic compositional technique by which one will divide up a shape, usually a rectangle, right, or a square, into 3 sections. So you basically divide the canvas 2 times horizontally and 2 times vertically, and it results in 3 kind of columns and 3 rows. And the theory of rule of thirds is that if you place your subject of interest along either one of those intersections or on the division line itself, it's just going to overall feel more interesting and interesting and dynamic for one's eye to look at.
Excellent.
Yeah, and the other thing that's going on here is line of sight. So one thing that I hear a lot from very gatekeeping photographers is that one must never, ever position one's subject where the bulk of the real estate of the frame is that which they're looking away from.
Aha, yes.
The idea is that you would want their line of sight to be returning the viewer back to the rest of the panel or the picture. And we're not doing that here. So I would assume, Young, that it's deliberately done. Yeah.
So, great explanation, Shannon. Sensei Shannon. So I think it goes without saying that rules are meant to be broken, and there are definitely good scenarios where you can totally break the rule of thirds if you want to give a sense of unease and tension. There's also another kind of camera rule or layout compositional standard practice, which is, if your hero character needs to be on the right side and then your villain character is on the left side, or when you're moving, you usually move in the direction that the reader will read text usually, but you can always break those rules if you want to elicit a sense of anxiety. And I was hoping that that was what was coming off of the shot here, because if you ever want to just like make somebody feel super uncomfortable or super nervous, move your character to the edge of the frame and have them look off into something that the audience doesn't know what's there. So you build that like tension and that mystery, and it really amps up that anxiety. So if you're looking for like that beautiful still shot, you want to have the graphic flow leading the audience's eye into the interior of the shot. But if you really want to get them on the edge of their seat, pull that character towards the edge of the frame. That's kind of my tip for the day.
Dun, 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 dun.
The more you know.
So in this panel, what I wanted to talk about was just the horror buildup. Young Hee, do you mind like walking us through some of this as I slowly scroll, and then we can kind of go back and touch on how you.
Yeah. This part, I've been looking forward to the return of a particular character because it actually is a good point of a character flaw, I feel like, that Simon has, where he has to have the last word and everything, or he has to be the right one, or maybe a little bit misuse of his abilities and the power that he has on the conversation. And then here, wait. So you can kind of see that he's reacting to something that we can't quite see. And I always think that's really, really, for me, that's a scary moment whenever you hear something off screen or a character is talking to somebody or reacting to somebody that's not in the shot, and you can see the character's facial expressions you can see the response of the character that's being spoken to, and that typically is always more powerful. So it's kind of what's happening here, where we don't know who is that behind Simon.
Rack
Yeah.
focus.
And then we see his face peek out, and then we see Simon kind of like moving into the distance and getting a little out of focus, and he knows who it is. You can see on his expression, he's like, oh shit.
Now you use that to make us uncomfortable, right?
Yeah. And I really wanted to draw it out. This is something that I have to learn to do more of, which is like really just play within the scene and not try to get out of it too fast. Really, and I think it comes from my like frugal Asian nature, where I'm like,
What?
I'm like, I cannot waste too much space. I cannot use up too many pixels, or I have to wait, screen.
Oh, sorry, I thought you
Yeah.
were.
I have to make the or use up the time wisely instead of just really savoring the moment and then drawing it out as fast as possible. It's kind of like, when somebody's holding a note and you're like, oh, when are they going to release it? And then the audience is getting more and more tense because you're waiting for that note to break. Or if somebody's like holding a stare or holding their breath, and if you can just hold out for 1 second more, you're just gonna really amp up that intensity. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think if you are doing a horror or you're doing a thriller comic, um, just really exploit the shit out of your panels and just like ratchet up that tension as much as you can.
Like this is cropped
But don't go overboard.
Yeah, don't have the person be like, uh you have to use it at key moments. With great power comes great responsibility.
Well, I have to say this panel makes me feel very uncomfortable because it's like he's already cropped off. You can't see his face at all. And this definitely isn't a cool guy.
He's glowing red.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you want to keep the audience scrolling and just hanging on every dialogue or every bubble.
That's what I'm doing now.
And it can get annoying if you abuse it. It can be annoying, but if you can get that right balance, you're like, what's coming? What's coming? And then you get
There it
this.
is.
Derek!
Yeah.
Can we pause here, please? I may be alone in this, or I don't know, perhaps there are some readers who feel similarly, but I like Derek. I like him a lot. I've always liked him, even when I couldn't remember his name and just called him Chad all the time. If I think of like non-Simon characters who I just absolutely love, or people outside the core 3 or 4, um, Derek and Spider Demon are my favorites. He's just such a jerk in a way that's like you want to slap him, but he just seems so helpless and lost at the same time.
Do you like the anti-hero characters? Not that I guess he's not necessarily.
No,
Maybe he
he's not.
could have been. He could have, if he lived. He
I
could
think
have been.
He's definitely an anti-hero.
He's a very vivid character, right? Like he's definitely a character in broads. Like I don't say broad strokes to mean lack of nuance or one note, but like, yeah, he has a presence, I suppose. He had a presence that was big in those mock trials, and he's just such a dick. I don't I don't like him because he's a dick, but I kind of do. I don't know.
I understand the appeal of characters that are definitely anti-hero and break the mold of who we're supposed to find empathetic. Not quite a. I'm not on board on the Derek train, but I appreciate that
Well,
you.
pause. Wait. Don't go.
Oh, there was more Derek. That's why I was gonna show them.
Well, there was something else I wanted to say about this
Oh.
too. I think because looking back on Derek, it's almost there are things about he's almost quaint, right? Like he's quaint in the sense of his level of threat. Because
Oh yeah, he was like mini boss. Or not even mini boss. He was below mini boss.
He was like the villain starter pack, right? Like Simon, like before he understood what else was going on, Derek might have been like one of the biggest devils that he had to deal with outside of Mount Rushmore or McNamara. And so I'm just very fond of Derek, both for just what a dick and also kind of what he represents as like from the start of Simon's journey.
All right. Well, actually, in this scene, I think this is a good example of another kind of horror-y trope And this is where Simon has fled from the scene of the press conference, and here Eight Eyes has tracked him down, and he thought that he was safe behind this pillar in his little kind of cocoon. He's in his sort of fetal position, but we get the stereotypical, disembodied hands that come out of the shadows and grab you. So I really am a fan of that imagery, and I've seen it a lot on like movie posters and in particularly in Japanese horror films. So I
It
was like,
works really well. There's just something so inherently just disturbing about disembodied limbs appearing, especially hands. Um, and I don't and I don't know whether that's because like I've seen it so much in horror films or whether there's just something
mm,
about having something touch you
you know
that
what it
you
is?
can't see. And yeah, go ahead.
Well, I don't know if it's the same for you, but it's that dissonance between something that's like really intimate and almost caring and caressing, but so horrific.
It's like a this kind of violation.
But you see that she's caressing the side of his face, of his cheek, but
Mhm.
it's obviously a threat, and having that contradiction really is a kind of unnerving thing.
God, and you may not appreciate this comparison, Young, but it also reminds me of the scene in Signs when they're in the basement and he shines the flashlight on his kid and the alien is
Is it caressing his cheek?
yeah, well,
No,
it's
it wasn't.
stomach. It's
I
just
don't
touching
remember
him,
this.
and I mean, I wouldn't feel happier about someone caressing my flub than my face personally, but that's me.
It was tenderizing him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, this scene creeps me out, so good job.
So something I enjoyed going through this latest chapter was that it's full of legal goodness. I personally just love everything law related when it shows up in Simon Sue's, and this particular chapter has quite a bit of that good lawyerly content. So,
Does it bring
yeah,
you back to your law school days?
it I think it does because I think I've said before on Behind the Panels that a lot of what I appreciate about Simon Sue's is seeing Simon in law school because it does bring me back to that time, and it's also his special power. So it's great that his special power is lawyer. So to see him actually using it and also to have you doing, because I mean, you've seen portrayals of lawyers in media sometimes, and I don't know, some of it doesn't seem particularly well researched or nuanced, and I feel like you make an effort.
I mean, I'm glad you say that, because I actually am a fan of um the true power of lawyers, which is to sway people with their words. And I think there's a lot of extra drama that's inserted into these legal procedurals that don't necessarily need, because, or maybe you do just to get the mainstream interested in it. But I feel like there's enough drama in there already. Uh,
Yeah.
Case in point, I think there's some. I think what's really frustrating about lawyers in general, or what people find in stereotypes about lawyers, is that they do a lot of double talk, or they can really worm their way out of a argument or out of a corner by really finding nuances, or doing a semantic argument of some kind. And this is a lot what happens with how lawyers can present their cases in court and win, not necessarily because they were able to find a a definitive break in the law, but they were able to talk about how you should interpret the law.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what's happening here, because the single actor standard, a lot of it is just like, how do you prove this thing? Especially, this was something that was meant to hold corporations accountable for negligence and liability, but you have to prove that the corporation itself acted like an entity, and everything about the corporation was in lockstep with each other. So the way that you can do that is if you have evidence that there was some type of like notice or memo that went around to all the supervisors in that corporation, and everyone had to follow the same practice. It was standardized throughout the company. It was part of the culture.
So that is single actor standards.
Yeah. And that's kind of what part of the evidence that the prosecution had was showing that the captain of this ship, where they found all of these human remains due to human trafficking, had gotten some type of like secret set of orders from on high about, you know, what to do in this case when this happens. And that was how well, that's what the prosecution based their case on, and that is what the defense was trying to find a way around, or they were paying all these legal theorists to try to battle against this argument.
Oh God, you know, you say the words legal theory, and I just that's more like PTSD, traumatic flashbacks to working at law schools, because I won't say who, but I did support a legal theorist, and it was a nightmare.
We will definitely have to have a completely separate episode where we dig into that, because I am very interested.
I saw this former lawyer that I used to support on the news in relation to something a year ago, and I saw I saw her face. It immediately went, ah,
Oh
like
no.
I made a noise out loud and left the room.
Well, I can imagine that it could be very frustrating.
Yeah. Also, this scene, if we're talking about legal stuff, it's really great to see Simon exercising his lawyer powers and having somewhat of the upper hand here. He makes, yeah, I just, it's comedic, but it's also somewhat triumphant in this moment where you see him without even having to reveal, like, say anything himself. He's kind of showing up, um, Matthew McConaughey slash Jamie Lannister slash
Yeah, he's
Montague.
marking he is marking his territory. This is his element. He's flexing.
Let me put it up here. Wait, who's flexing, him or?
Oh no, Simon.
Simon.
Simon is flexing.
Oh yes.
I mean, the other guy's, he's trying to flex, but
Simon.
Yeah,
oh,
he's
getting angry.
rattled here.
He's like,
And Simon has his personal cell phone number because he gave it to him in season 1. And I think he didn't think Simon would survive. So
there he is.
He's still there.
you mean Simon didn't like drunk dial him before now? Yeah, it's such a like.
Yeah, well, there he is. He knows how to play to the audience.
What's great about this is, like, you could be interpreted. I mean, I know we reveal or you reveal in subsequent panels that he's actually standing there, but this could be one of those, like, Alberto is possessed of the spirit of Simon. And then you're like, oh wait, no, Simon is literally standing right behind him. Oh my God.
I could see that as an anime, like he's just talking and it's like, whoa.
They blend together.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so here, what I want to talk about are, I guess, just the use of character sheets in comics, or just in animation, just in general in production. Some people think it's cheating. Some people don't use it at all. But what I think is it's very helpful, especially for, I'm going to scroll down, for characters that always have certain looks. Like this is Simon's
power of law compels you face.
Thank you. The power of law compels you face. And this is a part of his character sheet. This is a part of who he is. It's not. However, Montague's, like, he's really a smooth guy. This is not smooth. This is not one of his normal faces. He's actually hates him. I personally think that if you have, well, what Young has told me is if you have a long-standing comic or just a long-standing work, it's good to use these. I think it's very helpful. Um,
Oh, you mean character sheets?
yeah, character sheets. Like what made you start? Because I know on the original Simon Says there was no character sheet. So I mean, was it being in production for so long that made you say, "Why don't I have a character sheet?" Or what compelled you to make a
Well,
character sheet?
the first time I did it, it was just sort of for fun. So I wasn't on a deadline, and I didn't have a set number of panels that I had to submit every week. But because I'm publishing this now,
Mm-hmm.
I need to have a minimum number of panels, and I kind of I could do a lot of shortcuts, but I feel like the better shortcut is to just have your character sheet and then reuse expressions where you can.
Like this one.
Yeah. So it has the twofold benefit of being quick and efficient, but also it's a quality type consistency because you can make sure your characters are on model and that the you don't you don't push the expression too much to the point that they no longer look like your character.
Now, I also think, like, I know for some people, I'm not going to say all, but there are some people who do look at manga or just other comics and even anime, and they think that seeing these certain type of faces is like a standard so and so, and I must always have these types of expressions and whatnot. But I honestly think in this comic and in others, I like actually where everything is not canned. And even with very popular mangas like Naruto, like it, you can see a lot of canned expressions. However, when it comes to like certain pivotal scenes, you will see the faces change, and they're definitely not the same like that are
There's a
on a model.
distinction though that I want to make clear because what we talked about before about breaking rules
Mm-hmm.
when it makes sense. So there's a difference between canned and then kind of using the trope to your advantage. There's a lot of visual shorthand, I call it visual shorthand, in manga
Makes
particularly,
sense.
that elicit an emotion or a like a setup, and it's very, if you need to just set up a punchline and then get to it, or just have this sort of unspoken kind of in joke with your audience, I think it's okay to use standard manga visuals like super deformed faces or the little vein that pops out of the forehead or like certain types of action lines. I think that can help inform or help sell something really, really quick with just, visuals.
So when would it be good to actually use, I guess, one that is outside of standard, like this face?
Uh, you mean something that
Something that's
is
not like the,
not like a tropey thing?
yeah, like the vein in your head, although I always find that hilarious.
I mean, you can always do it. I think it's just a matter of how much you want to redraw your character. I think it's always good to do it on pivotal moments in this narrative, but what I kind of was getting at is that you can use those not canned expressions, but those common visual aids that we see in manga if it helps sell the moment more. So story is king, and as long as you're selling your story, you can use whatever tools you want. But there's some tools that produce more successfully results than others, and it's kind of hard to give hard hard and fast rules. It's just stuff that you have to play with.
That's true. And it also depends on your genre. And it also depends on your audience and what you're selling.
I
Yeah.
would love to revisit this as well as how to use a character sheet if and when we do an episode all about character sheet creation.
Yeah, well, let's plan for that for another. Maybe we'll do it in next week's episode. We'll do a process episode.
All right. And a comic character sheet, perhaps not a D&D character sheet. I'm sorry, guys.
Aw,
Both are amazing, though.
they are.
Well, here there's something that I wanted to call out because we've been seeing more and more of Eight Eyes in her human form, and I wanted to harken back to the version of the character or her form when she was this sort of out of control kind of psychopathic hungry demon form, and she had these like crazy shapes with her mouth and her eyes, and she's the eight-eyed demon, so she had crazy eyes. But now that she has to have this like public facing human form, she also needs to appear suave and in control. But I wanted to have a bridge between those moments and those aspects of the character, especially when she interacts with Simon, because she loves tormenting him. And here is a perfect illustration of, on the left hand side, her public facing face, and on the right hand side, her sinister psychopathic serial killer face. And
It's a nice face.
And it's
yeah.
also like a good because if you weren't thinking about that and wanting to build in that nuance, you could have very easily just did a very similar smile with like creepy sounding words.
Yeah, I think this is one of those characters that I'm going to be pushing those facial expressions in, also in conjunction with having creepy words or creepy dialogue bubbles, just because it's fun and because she's unpredictable. She's that character that can switch on a dime.
I mean, I'm frightened. I mean, look at
Yeah.
her.
But I really wanted that contrast, and I wanted her to, because if you have an out of control character, in some respects that is scary, and they can murder you at any moment, but a character that is kind of a mastermind and has everything planned out and is strategic, I feel like those are more dangerous.
I actually find those to be scarier.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there's this kind of trope that I see a lot in really just poorly done villains where they're scary because they're somehow irrational, either because they are quote unquote crazy or something else. Like in the reboot of Sherlock on the BBC, oh God, Moriarty bored me to tears because he was just like, he's just crazy. That's it. That's the plot. And it's just dull and boring.
Well, I don't know if you saw, no, you did see the other show that the creators did with Dracula, right?
No, I dodged that bullet. You
No,
warned
I could have sworn we talked about this.
we did talk about it, but I may have seen the first episode, but
Oh,
then I
okay.
think you warned me off the rest of it.
Yes, I think I remember that. I definitely remember the warning, but I feel like compared to Moriarty, Dracula's character in that show, particularly that show, is so terrifying because he appears as, he's a shapeshifter, so he has different animal forms. But then when he becomes Dracula and he appears in front of those nuns, he is almost debonair in some places because he's trying to get them to let him into the the cloister, into the castle, and no spoilers, but stuff happens, and it's because he's able to use his charm, and it's so frightening. I feel like that is the most frightening version of Dracula versus, the versions of vampires that are jumping from rooftops and savaging you. That version is truly terrifying.
Well, it's also terrifying because it's also, I think, much more realistic. Um, like, yes, there may be very cartoonish sort of evil people in the world who, they double down on their evilness by acting evil. But a lot of times, like, I don't know, the people that you're actually at most risk of are familiar faces or people who otherwise seem normal. Um, so anytime like that's played up in a narrative, I think is really satisfying for me because it just fits more with my worldview, which is that a lot of times, 99% of the times, evil looks like your neighbor. So that's why I can't stand it when people are like, I never expected so and so to be a serial killer. I was like, why didn't you?
uh, Banality of evil.
Yeah, that whole thing. I won't say too much about that because we could go into the weeds, but yeah.
Yeah,
I
no, that
just
makes sense.
think it's helpful when evil things are not as cartoonishly evil. Like she is more animalistic, if anything. I guess she kind of reminds me of like more of like some of the like Japanese ghost type thing movies where they're kind of creeping. She doesn't really have boo moments. She just kind of creeps around you.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I hate those boo moments.
Mm-hmm.
I also hate when actors make the choice that they're supposed to play a character evil and they just do it in the most heavy-handed, like Mr. Burns way possible.
Oh,
It's literally cartoonish.
Smithers.
yeah. All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today. So we're going to end it here. But before we go, I'm just going to see if you guys have anything that you want to talk about, any projects that you're doing, or any of the sites or your website. Corinne?
Hello. So I'm actually working on a character right now. I am a 3D character artist. So if you'd like to see what I'm doing, you can go to artstation.com/merchy5. Or if you want to see my portfolio, you can also go to cmurchison.com. But when you go there, you can just hit blog and you can see what I'm doing, or you can hit portfolio. You can see some of my production work or some of my personal work. But
Okay.
it'd be nice to have visitors.
All right. And Shannon, how about you,
So
sir?
before we switch, I just want to say that I did do this photo of Corinne. I took this shot. I love it. So I'm glad that you're using it. Now we can look at my Instagram. Okay, yes. So I'm in the process right now of actually redesigning my website. You can see it there, www.shannonforeman.com. It's under construction. So at this point, it's pretty much a fancy holder for a lot of my commercial event work. Right now I do a lot of event photography for nonprofits, corporate work, and then some lifestyle events like weddings. In the meantime, I've updated more recently, or I tend to update more often my Instagram here, which features a lot more of my personal work. But if you're interested, you can check that out. And actually, Corinne, can you scroll up? Is there a way to see the actual Instagram handle?
Um,
Well, I can provide a link in the comments.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. It's
Oh,
Shannon_N_Foreman, my last name.
okay. All right. Well, thank you guys again for joining. It's always a pleasure, and I will see all of you guys next week.
thank you for having us.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.